In 2019, a team of archaeologists working in Central Asia made a discovery that would reshape our understanding of a civilization most historians had dismissed as legend. According to Dr. Elena Petrov's published findings in the Journal of Near Eastern Studies, excavations at a remote site designated KZ-447 yielded artifacts consistent with descriptions found in fragmentary medieval texts. These texts, dating to the 13th century, describe an empire that flourished between the 9th and 11th centuries, one that amassed wealth rivaling the Byzantine Empire but vanished from historical records with startling completeness. The empire in question appears in Arabic sources as the Khanate of Khwarezm's predecessor, a polity that controlled key Silk Road nodes before Mongol invasions erased it from the landscape. Dr. Petrov's team, working under a joint Kazakhstan-UNESCO mandate, attributes the find to the so-called lost dynasty of the Sir Daria. Primary sources are scarce: 3 fragmentary chronicles held in the British Library, 2 in Tehran's National Museum, and scattered references in Chinese trade records from the Tang dynasty period. Each mentions vast tribute payments, suggesting concentrated wealth. The most detailed account comes from the Al-Biruni fragments, carbon dated to 1048 CE by Oxford's Radiocarbon Accelerator Unit. Al-Biruni, the Persian polymath, describes visiting a royal treasury containing gold beyond measure, 40 camel loads of lapis lazuli, and silver coins numbering in the hundreds of thousands. Dr. James Chen of Stanford's Department of History notes that Al-Biruni's measurements of architectural features at the site match ruins discovered at KZ-447 with less than 2% margin of error, a correlation he calls statistically improbable without direct observation. To contextualize the claimed treasure's magnitude, researchers compare it against documented historical wealth. According to Professor Maria Gonzalez at the University of Barcelona, Byzantine tax records from 950 CE show imperial revenues of approximately 8.6 million gold numismata annually. If Al-Biruni's 40 camel loads translates to the standard caravan measure, roughly 200 kilograms per load, the lapis alone would represent 8 metric tons. At medieval trade values documented in Genoese merchant ledgers, Professor Gonzalez calculates the single commodity's worth at 1.2 million numismata equivalent, or 14% of Byzantium's annual revenue. Dr. Petrov's initial permit, granted in March 2017, authorized exploratory trenches across 12 hectares at KZ-447. Her published site reports detail the first 2 seasons. 2017 yielded pottery shards and bronze implements. 2018 produced nothing of significance. The breakthrough came in July 2019 when ground-penetrating radar, operated by technicians from the German Archaeological Institute, detected a subsurface anomaly measuring approximately 30 meters in diameter at a depth of 4.7 meters. Excavation protocols required documentation at 5 centimeter intervals, a process that consumed 11 weeks of the summer season. On September 3, 2019, according to the excavation log certified by UNESCO observers, the team uncovered a sealed chamber. Initial photography revealed intact ceramic vessels, bronze weaponry, and textile fragments preserved by the region's arid climate. Dr. Petrov's inventory, published in April 2020, catalogs 247 distinct objects from the chamber's first layer. Among them, 17 silver dirhams bearing inscriptions in an archaic Turkic script, dated by epigrapher Dr. Yusuf Ahmadi to between 920 and 940 CE. These dates align precisely with the empire's supposed peak, as referenced in the Chinese chronicles. The inscriptions posed an immediate challenge. Dr. Ahmadi, working with comparative samples from the Orkhon inscriptions and Uyghur manuscripts, identified a dialect previously unknown to modern scholarship. His analysis, published in Central Asian Studies Quarterly, suggests the script combines Old Turkic base characters with loanwords from Sogdian, the lingua franca of Silk Road commerce. Of the 17 coins, 9 bear the phrase interpreted as Treasury of the Eternal Throne, while 8 reference a ruler whose name Dr. Ahmadi transliterates as Tungri Kagan. No other historical sources mention this title, raising questions about the empire's historiographical erasure. Metallurgical analysis conducted at Cambridge's MacDonald Institute provides crucial provenance data. Using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, Dr. Sarah Williams's team determined the silver's isotope ratios match or deposits in the Altai Mountains, approximately 800 kilometers northeast of KZ 447. The bronze items show a tin content of 11 to 13%, consistent with Central Asian metallurgical practices of the period, according to Dr. Williams's published findings. Carbon-14 dating of organic residues in 3 ceramic vessels returned dates of 895 CE plus or minus 35 years, with 95% confidence intervals placing them squarely in the empire's proposed timeframe. Ground-penetrating radar revealed a second anomaly beneath the first chamber, a void space measuring approximately 8 meters in diameter at 7.3 meters depth. Dr. Petrov's team required additional permits and structural engineering consultation before proceeding. According to her February 2021 field report, excavation resumed in May 2020 but was suspended after 6 weeks due to COVID-19 restrictions. Work recommenced in April 2021. The team employed shoring techniques adapted for mining operations, installing steel supports at 1-meter intervals. On June 17, 2021, excavators breached the second chamber's ceiling, revealing what Dr. Petrov describes as an intact treasury vault. Initial surveys, conducted with fiber optic cameras before full excavation, documented stacked containers arranged in systematic rows. Dr. Petrov's preliminary inventory, shared with funding institutions in August 2021, identifies at least 34 ceramic amphorae, 17 wooden chests with bronze fittings, and scattered loose artifacts. UNESCO protocols required documentation of in-situ positioning before any removal. This process, utilizing photogrammetry to create three-dimensional models, consumed 4 months. Dr. Heinrich Müller of the German Archaeological Institute, serving as technical consultant, notes the preservation state as exceptional, with organic materials including leather, wood, and textile showing minimal degradation. The first amphora opened under laboratory conditions in December 2021 contained 3,847 gold coins, according to the certified count witnessed by Kazakhstan's Ministry of Culture representatives. Each coin weighs approximately 4.2 grams, totaling 16.16 kilograms of gold from a single vessel. If all 34 amphorae contain similar quantities, an assumption Dr. Petrov emphasizes as preliminary, the total would exceed 549 kilograms of gold coinage. At current market prices of approximately $60,000 per kilogram, this represents roughly $32.9 million in raw material value, though historical and archaeological significance would command substantially higher figures at auction. Al-Biruni's account specifically mentions 40 camel-loads of lapis lazuli. Among the sealed containers, 12 wooden chests contained what preliminary X-ray imaging suggests are gemstones or mineral samples. Dr. Williams's team opened one chest in March 2022, finding 127 pieces of uncut lapis lazuli ranging from 50 to 800 grams each. The largest specimen weighed 782 grams. If the remaining 11 chests contain proportional amounts, Dr. Williams estimates a total mass between 140 and 180 kilograms of lapis, substantially less than Al-Biruni's claimed 8 metric tons, but still representing, in her words, the largest archaeological lapis find in Central Asian history. The disparity between Al-Biruni's account and the physical evidence requires examination. Dr. Chen proposes 3 scenarios. Al-Biruni may have exaggerated, as medieval chroniclers often did for rhetorical effect. The treasury may have been partially looted before burial, or KZ 447 represents one of multiple treasury sites. Supporting the third hypothesis, Dr. Petrov notes that 2 additional sites, designated KZ 448 and KZ 449, located 18 and 34 kilometers from the primary excavation, show similar ground-penetrating radar signatures. She has applied for permits to investigate both, though Kazakhstan's Ministry of Culture has not yet approved funding. Beyond coins, the treasury contained silver objects catalogued by Dr. Petrov's team through June 2022. The inventory includes 89 silver vessels, plates, cups, and ceremonial bowls, with a combined weight of 47.3 kilograms. Additionally, 6 silver statuettes depicting what archaeologists interpret as religious or royal figures total 12.8 kilograms. The craftsmanship, according to Dr. Ahmadi's analysis, shows influences from both Islamic and steppe traditions, suggesting the empire served as a cultural crossroads. Several vessels bear hallmarks consistent with Samanid-era workshops in Bokhara, implying trade networks or tribute relationships with that better documented polity. 5 wooden chests contain textile materials, an unexpected find given the usual degradation of organic fibers. Dr. Muller attributes preservation to the chamber's stable temperature and low humidity, measured at 43% relative humidity by environmental monitors. Analysis by Dr. Linda Zhao at the Textile Conservation Center identified silk from at least 3 distinct sources: Chinese, based on weave patterns matching Tang dynasty specimens; Persian, identified by dye compounds including madder root; and a third type tentatively classified as Central Asian based on wool content and geometric motifs. Radiocarbon dating of silk samples returned dates between 880 and 950 CE. Among the most intriguing finds, 17 swords stored in a separate section of the chamber. Dr. Petrov's weapons specialist, Dr. Kenji Tanaka of Kyoto University, identifies them as ceremonial rather than functional combat weapons based on gold inlay work and impractical blade geometries. Nevertheless, metallurgical analysis reveals sophisticated steel production. Carbon content ranges from 0.6 to 0.8%, approaching modern medium carbon steel standards. Dr. Tanaka's paper, published in the Journal of Archaeological Science, notes this places the sword's manufacture among the most advanced of the medieval period, comparable to contemporary Japanese and Damascus techniques. The ceramic assemblage provides crucial evidence for trade networks and cultural connections. Dr. Zhao's team analyzed 312 pottery fragments and intact vessels from both chambers. Petrographic analysis, examining mineral inclusions under microscopy, identified clay sources from at least 7 distinct geological zones. Some pottery originated within 50 kilometers of KZ 447, while others match clay signatures from regions near Merv, Samarkand, and sites in western China's Darim Basin. The distribution suggests the empire controlled or heavily traded across distances exceeding 2,000 kilometers, a logistical achievement requiring substantial organizational capacity and wealth. To contextualize the treasury's significance, researchers compare it against other known archaeological finds. The Hoxne hoard, discovered in England in 1992, contained 15,234 Roman coins weighing approximately 33.5 kilograms of gold and silver. The Staffordshire hoard, found in 2009, comprised 5.1 kilograms of gold and 1.4 kilograms of silver. By these standards, KZ 447's estimated 549 kilograms of gold would represent a find roughly 16 times larger than Hoxne and more than 100 times the Staffordshire discovery. Dr. Gonzalez notes, however, that direct comparisons are complicated by dating, cultural context, and the incomplete excavation of the Central Asian site. Perhaps the greatest mystery remains the empire's near-total absence from historical records. Dr. Chen's research into Chinese sources found only 6 references in Tang dynasty documents, all brief mentions in trade ledgers. Arabic sources offer little more, Al-Biruni's fragments and 3 passages in works by al-Masudi and Ibn Haqal. Byzantine chronicles make no mention whatsoever. Dr. Chen proposes that the Mongol invasions of the 13th century may have deliberately erased records as part of conquest strategy, but acknowledges this hypothesis lacks direct evidence. Alternative theories suggest the empire simply collapsed before establishing lasting diplomatic relationships with record-keeping states. Surface remains at KZ-447 suggest a substantial architectural complex. Electromagnetic surveys conducted in 2020 mapped subsurface foundations extending across 8.4 hectares, roughly equivalent to 12 soccer fields. Dr. Muller's analysis of exposed wall segments reveals rammed earth construction with brick facing, a technique common in Central Asian architecture of the period. Wall thickness measurements, averaging 2.3 meters at the base, indicate defensive structures designed to withstand siege warfare. These dimensions align with fortifications at Merv and other major Silk Road cities, suggesting the site served as a regional power center, not merely a remote outpost. Using ceramic density as a proxy, a method developed by archaeologist Dr. Robert Adams for Mesopotamian sites, Dr. Petrov estimates the settlement's population. Ceramic counts from test trenches averaged 147 sherds per cubic meter in residential zones. Applying Adams's formula, which correlates ceramic density with population density based on comparative Near Eastern data, the calculation suggests a resident population between 8,000 and 12,000 individuals. For the medieval period, this would qualify as a significant urban center, comparable to contemporary Nishapur or Bokhara in their early phases. Such population concentrations required agricultural surpluses, trade income, or both to sustain. Paleobotanical analysis offers insights into the empire's economic foundation. Dr. Zhao's team recovered 1,847 carbonized plant remains from hearth contexts across the site. Wheat comprised 63% of samples, barley 28%, and millet 9%. The wheat variety, identified through morphological analysis as Triticum aestivum, matches strains cultivated in irrigated agriculture. Core samples from nearby alluvial deposits show evidence of canal construction, layered sediments inconsistent with natural deposition patterns. Optically stimulated luminescence dating of these sediments suggests irrigation infrastructure dating to 850 to 950 CE, coinciding with the empire's proposed timeline and demonstrating the agricultural capacity necessary to support urban populations. Determining the empire's religious orientation has proven challenging. Among the artifacts, Dr. Ahmadi identifies symbols associated with three distinct traditions: Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, and Islam. 15 artifacts bear fire altar motifs consistent with Zoroastrian practice. 8 show Buddhist iconography, including one bronze statue tentatively identified as Maitreya. 6 objects contain Arabic script with Islamic invocations. Dr. Ahmadi interprets this not as confusion but as evidence of religious pluralism, potentially state policy in a trade-dependent empire where tolerance facilitated commerce. This interpretation aligns with known practices in other Silk Road polities such as the Sogdian city-states. Direct evidence of trade comes from residue analysis of storage vessels. Dr. Williams's team identified organic compounds in 17 amphorae using gas chromatography mass spectrometry. Results detected cinnamaldehyde, the primary component of cinnamon, in 3 vessels, a spice that would have originated in Ceylon or Southeast Asia, thousands of kilometers distant. 2 vessels showed traces of resin consistent with frankincense, sourced from the Arabian Peninsula. 4 contained residues matching indigo dye compounds, likely from India. These findings document participation in long-distance trade networks spanning from the Mediterranean to East Asia, consistent with a Silk Road intermediary position. The gold coins themselves reveal economic sophistication. Dr. Ahmadi's numismatic analysis identifies 3 distinct denominations based on weight standards: 4.2 grams, 2.1 grams, and 1.05 grams, a binary division system similar to Byzantine and Islamic coinage. Chemical analysis shows consistent gold purity of 91 to 93%, indicating centralized minting with quality control. 17 coins bear mint marks tentatively identified as location indicators, suggesting a multi-site monetary system. This level of standardization, according to Dr. Ahmadi, indicates a functioning state apparatus with the bureaucratic capacity to regulate currency across geographic space, evidence of sophisticated economic administration. Multiple independent dating methods converge on a narrow chronological window. Radiocarbon dates from organic materials cluster between 880 and 950 CE. Optically stimulated luminescence of ceramics suggests manufacture between 870 and 960 CE. Coin inscriptions, interpreted through paleographic comparison, date to 920 to 940 CE. Textile dye analysis, compared against documented production timelines for madder and indigo compounds, points to 890 to 950 CE. Dr. Muller notes that this convergence across methodologies, with overlapping confidence intervals, provides unusually robust chronological anchoring for a site of this type. The implication, a relatively brief but intense period of occupation and wealth accumulation. Why was such wealth buried rather than spent or looted? Dr. Petrov identifies evidence suggesting a deliberate, organized burial rather than hasty concealment. The chamber's construction, purpose-built with brick vaulting rather than a repurposed cellar, required significant labor investment. Items were systematically arranged, not dumped. No skeletal remains were found, ruling out a tomb context. Dr. Chen proposes the burial occurred during a political crisis when authorities chose to cache wealth for later retrieval, a retrieval that never happened. Precedents exist. The Hoxton and Staffordshire hoards in Britain may represent similar situations during periods of instability or invasion. The subsequent absence from historical records may reflect deliberate policy by successor states. Dr. Chen points to the Karakhanids' conversion to Islam and their rewriting of regional history to emphasize Islamic continuity over pre-Islamic polities. Similarly, later Mongol chroniclers showed little interest in entities that predated their conquests. Without diplomatic correspondence, monumental inscriptions, or administrative archives, the empire left minimal documentary footprint. Its existence survives only in fragmentary mentions by outside observers like al-Biruni. Dr. Chen notes this pattern repeats throughout history, states that lose political struggles often lose historiographical ones as well. The victors control what gets remembered. Despite 5 years of work, the site remains largely unexcavated. Dr. Petrov estimates her team has investigated approximately 11% of the architectural complex based on geophysical surveys. The 2 treasury chambers represent a fraction of subsurface anomalies detected by ground-penetrating radar. 23 additional anomalies show characteristics consistent with sealed chambers or voids. Budget constraints limit excavation. The 2017 to 2022 seasons received combined funding of approximately $4.7 million from UNESCO, Kazakhstan's government, and private foundations. Dr. Petrov's grant proposals for the sites designated KZ 448 and KZ 449 request an additional $6.2 million, but approval remains pending as of publication. Questions of ownership complicate future research and preservation. Under Kazakhstan law, archaeological finds belong to the state, and the artifacts will ultimately reside in the National Museum in Nur-Sultan. However, UNESCO's involvement introduces international heritage considerations. Dr. Petrov's excavation agreement stipulates that materials must remain in Kazakhstan but allows international research access. Private collectors have reportedly offered substantial sums for items, though no sales are legally permissible. In 2022, Kazakhstan's Ministry of Culture reported investigating 3 attempted thefts from the storage facility housing KZ-447 materials, underscoring security concerns that affect site access and research timelines. The empire's trajectory finds parallels in other historical cases of sudden collapse. The Aksumite Empire in East Africa dominated Red Sea trade from the 1st to 7th centuries CE before declining into obscurity, leaving monumental stele but sparse textual records. The Khmer Empire's Angkor declined after the 15th century, its jungle-covered temples unknown to Western scholarship until the 19th century. The Nabatean Kingdom, wealthy from controlling incense routes, was absorbed by Rome and largely forgotten until Petra's rediscovery. Dr. Gonzalez notes a pattern: trade-dependent polities can accumulate wealth rapidly but prove vulnerable to route shifts or military conquest. Their prosperity leaves archaeological traces, but their political extinction can erase them from historical memory. The KZ-447 excavations have generated significant academic output. Dr. Petrov and collaborators have published 17 peer-reviewed articles between 2020 and 2023 in journals including Nature, Archaeological Science, and the Journal of Near Eastern Studies. These publications have been cited 312 times according to Google Scholar metrics as of March 2023. The findings have prompted reassessments of Central Asian trade networks, medieval metallurgy, and historiographical methodologies. 3 doctoral dissertations at European and American universities currently focus on material from the site. Dr. Muller observes that KZ-447 has fundamentally shifted our understanding of 10th century Eurasia from a region dominated by a few major powers to a complex landscape of competing polities. Kazakhstan's government has announced plans for a dedicated museum wing to house KZ-447 materials. According to statements from the Ministry of Culture in December 2022, the project will allocate 2,400 square meters of exhibition space in the National Museum's planned expansion. Estimated construction cost, $18.3 million, with completion targeted for 2026. The exhibition design, contracted to a consortium including the British Museum's Consulting Division, will feature climate-controlled displays for organic materials, security systems meeting international insurance standards for high-value artifacts, and interactive digital reconstructions of the site. Dr. Petrov serves as chief archaeological consultant for the project, ensuring scholarly accuracy in public interpretation. The discovery has attracted substantial public attention. A documentary produced by Arte France and Kazakhstan's national broadcaster aired in April 2022, reaching an estimated 2.3 million viewers across Europe and Central Asia. National Geographic featured the excavation in its October 2022 issue with a 12-page photo essay. UNESCO designated KZ-447 a World Heritage Tentative Site in June 2022, a preliminary step toward full World Heritage status. Social media analytics tracked by Dr. Petrov's institution show over 450,000 engagements across platforms discussing the find. This visibility has aided fundraising but also increased pressure for rapid results, creating tension between scholarly thoroughness and public expectations. The excavation has pioneered several methodological advances. Dr. Muller's team developed a modified ground-penetrating radar protocol that improved subsurface resolution by approximately 30% compared to standard archaeological applications, according to their paper in Archaeological Prospection. Photogrammetric techniques captured 847,000 individual photographs to create millimeter-accurate three-dimensional models of artifacts and contexts. These models, totaling 4.7 terabytes of data, are archived at 3 international institutions to ensure preservation. Machine learning algorithms, developed in collaboration with computer scientists at MIT, have been trained to identify ceramic type classifications with 89% accuracy, accelerating analysis of the over 30,000 pottery fragments recovered. The discovery carries contemporary political implications. Kazakhstan's government has emphasized the find as evidence of the nation's historical significance, aligning with broader efforts to construct post-Soviet national identity. President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev referenced KZ-447 in a 2022 speech, stating it demonstrates Kazakhstan's role as a bridge between civilizations. Neighboring countries, particularly Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, have expressed interest in collaborative research, given the empire's probable territorial extent across modern borders. However, Dr. Petrov notes that funding priorities and permit approvals remain subject to political considerations, occasionally creating obstacles to research directions that might complicate nationalist narratives. Not all scholars accept the findings without reservation. Dr. Margaret Sullivan of Oxford's Institute of Archaeology, in a 2021 critical review, questions whether the Treasury's scale might result from interpretive overreach. She notes that Dr. Petrov's extrapolation from 1 amphora to 34 assumes uniform contents, an assumption she calls archaeologically risky. Dr. Sullivan also points out that the lack of monumental architecture or fortification walls comparable to major Silk Road cities like Merv or Samarkand raises questions about the polity's actual power. In response, Dr. Petrov acknowledges these uncertainties but argues the physical evidence, particularly the metallurgical sophistication and trade good diversity, demonstrates significance regardless of final quantity estimates. Dr. Petrov has outlined a 5-year research agenda in grant proposals submitted to the European Research Council and National Science Foundation. Priority 1, excavating the sites designated KZ448 and KZ449 to test the multiple treasury hypothesis. Priority 2, extensive paleo-environmental analysis, pollen cores, geomorphological studies, to reconstruct the region's medieval climate and agricultural potential. Priority 3, intensified archival research in collections across Eurasia seeking overlooked textual references. Priority 4, DNA analysis of human remains from associated burial contexts to understand population genetics and migration patterns. The proposals request combined funding of $14.7 million over 5 years, with decisions expected by late 2023. KZ447 challenges prevailing models of medieval Eurasian history. Standard narratives emphasize well-documented empires, Byzantine, Abbasid, Tang, with regions like Central Asia cast in supporting roles. The physical evidence of substantial wealth accumulation in a previously unknown polity suggests these narratives may be incomplete. Dr. Chen argues the discovery highlights archaeology's power to correct textual bias. Written sources favor literate, bureaucratic states. Archaeology can reveal the power and sophistication of societies that left minimal written records but abundant material culture. This methodological lesson extends beyond this specific case to broader questions about how we reconstruct past societies and whose histories get told. Estimating the treasure's monetary worth proves complex. The approximately 549 kilograms of gold, at current market rates of $60,000 per kilogram, represents $32.9 million in raw material. The 60.1 kilograms of silver adds roughly $45,000. However, archaeological and historical value vastly exceeds melt value. Comparable ancient coins regularly sell at auction for hundreds or thousands of times their metal content. The Staffordshire hoard was valued at £3.3 million despite containing only 5.1 kilograms of gold. Dr. Gonzalez estimates that if KZ447 materials were legally auctioned, which they will not be, the collection could fetch between $200 million and $500 million, though she emphasizes such figures remain speculative. Preserving the artifacts presents ongoing technical challenges. Textiles, exposed to air after centuries in stable conditions, have shown signs of deterioration. Dr. Zhao's conservation team has placed the most fragile materials in argon atmosphere storage, reducing oxygen exposure to below 1%. Metal objects, particularly bronze items, exhibit active corrosion that requires electrolytic reduction treatments. The wooden chests, structurally weakened, have been stabilized with polyethylene glycol impregnation, a process requiring 6 to 18 months per object. These conservation efforts consume approximately 40% of the project's annual budget. Dr. Muller notes that excavation is the easy part, proper conservation and storage for the next 1,000 years is where the real challenges lie. Fundamental questions remain unresolved. The empire's name is uncertain. Lost dynasty of the Seer Daria is a scholarly placeholder, not an attested designation. The identity of Tungri-Kagan and potential succession lines are unknown. The precise cause of collapse, military conquest, environmental change, economic disruption, lacks definitive evidence. The extent of territorial control remains unmapped. Dr. Petrov's team has identified these as priority research questions, but answering them may require decades of work. As Dr. Chen observes in his 2022 assessment, we have proven that a significant polity existed. Now comes the harder task, determining who they were, what they achieved, and why they vanished. The excavations at KZ 447 have documented what Dr. Petrov characterizes as one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the early 21st century. The physical evidence, 549 kilograms of estimated gold, sophisticated metallurgy, extensive trade networks, demonstrates a polity of considerable wealth and organizational capacity. Yet this material success stood alongside historiographical fragility. The empire's near-total absence from written records meant its very existence remained unproven until 2019. The case illustrates archaeology's essential role in recovering lost histories and the sobering reality that power and prosperity do not guarantee historical memory. As excavations continue and analysis deepens, this forgotten empire is gradually being restored to its place in the complex tapestry of medieval Eurasian civilization.